Getting into the City of London has historically always been a major goal for railway companies, and as a result there are plenty of lines to be seen, some of them very well known. There's the Underground, of course, probably the most famous. There's the Thameslink. There's the DLR. And then there's this. It's known as the Millennium Inclinator, even though it was actually opened in 2003. It's officially an inclined lift, but it runs on rails, so I count it as a railway. It provides a way for mobility impaired people or those with pushchairs to get from the riverside to the Millennium Bridge or to the ramps that lead up to St. Paul's. It looks like a funicular railway, but technically it isn't one. A funicular railway has two carriages linked together. One goes down, and as it does so, it pulls the other up. When it has one carriage, it's an inclined lift or inclined elevator, if using American English is how you are, inclined. This one was built to a gauge of 1 metre and rises at an angle of 13.6 degrees. It has a maximum speed of 0.5 metres per second. The ride takes just a little under a minute. Cable-hauled railways are very old indeed, predating conventional railways by literally centuries. The one at Hohensalzburg Castle in Austria, known as the Reichstag, dates back to 1504, or possibly 1495. I assume I am pronouncing Hohensalzburg, Reichstag, or both wrong, and therefore I apologise. In London, cable-hauled railways have existed since 1838, when the London and Birmingham Railway opened. This hauled trains from Camden to Euston by rope. This was followed 2 years later by the London and Blackwall Railway, the ancestor of the current Docklands Light Railway. Both would later be rebuilt for locomotive haulage, which allowed for greater flexibility. The first funicular railway in Britain was the South Cliff Lift at Scarborough, which opened in 1873. Yes, I know I just said a funicular railway and an inclined lift aren't the same thing, but I'm prepared to risk the wrath of the British Funicular Railway Anti-Defamation Trust. Unless you count the London and Birmingham Railway as a really long inclined lift, the Millennium Inclinator is the first inclined lift in London. It's not the only one. There's another at Greenford, which might wind up being the subject of its own video if I can find enough interesting things to say about it. The Inclinator was built by Axis Elevators and is on its second generation of rolling stock, if you can call it rolling stock. The lift was plagued with reliability problems, and in 2012 it was replaced with a car by Hutter Aufzüge in time for the Olympics. By 2018 it was again noted to be suffering from reliability issues, and the idea of another replacement was mooted. I'm not aware what progress, if any, has been made on this proposal. On my first filming trip for this video, the Inclinator was out of service. Now, I don't want to be unnecessarily mean, so it is worth noting that there are external factors at play here that affect its reliability. It has been a target for vandalism on a number of occasions. Overloading is an issue, and a point noted in the 2019 report, people don't always report that it's been broken down, so repairs don't always get carried out as efficiently as they might. The city's maintenance department do consider it a priority, but there's not much they can do if they don't know. I'd say the Millennium Inclinator has a reputation for unreliability, except it's so little known, even by people in London, that I think it's pushing it to say it has any kind of reputation at all. Nevertheless, here it is. Perhaps the most obscure railway in London, the shortest in central London, and one of the newest. When it's working, it's mighty useful for cyclists, parents with pushchairs, or those with mobility issues. It's just that, quite often, it's not working. Now, if there was actually a disabled person waiting to use this lift, then I'd feel pretty bad about this right now. But there isn't. Also, I had my sense of guilt surgically removed.